and welcome. You're watching UATV News with me, Ksenia Buhai. First, this hour, the latest developments. Russia's cynical attempt to negotiate favorable terms for itself in exchange for people's lives. This is how head of the Ukrainian delegation to the trilateral contact group, Leonid Kravchuk, commented the reports of the Russian media about the alleged release of several Ukrainians by the self-proclaimed authorities of the unrecognized Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics. They're ready to do it only through the mediation of Viktor Medvedchuk, Ukrainian politician and close friend of Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is a violation of all existing international agreements, including those reached by the leaders of the Normandy 4.
They want to pass Ukrainian citizens to Viktor Medvedchuk, and they insist on it. However, we still think we should be thankful for this initiative as it goes in the frameworks of international norms. We also think that a corresponding official agreement should be concluded between Ukraine and Russia. Forgive me, but people cannot be passed over like some kind of a thing. This is absurd. Everything should be held in the frameworks of international law. The state, Ukrainian state, cannot and will not manipulate lives and fates of its citizens. Guided by international norms, Ukraine protected, protects, and will always protect its citizens.
Tariff protests are held throughout Ukraine. Citizens have taken to the streets of their cities to demand a reduction in the prices of utility bills. The government states the most effective way to reduce the price of gas for the population is to fix the price at the level of $0.25 per cubic meter until the end of the heating season. The restriction will not affect Ukraine's cooperation with the IMF and will prevent possible abuse by players on the gas market. My colleagues will tell you more.
The city of Odessa, people blocked the busiest avenue. The city of Zhytomyr, people stormed the building of the regional council. City of Kherson, angry people blocked the highway to Mykolaiv.
For me, the tariffs are high. I have the minimum salary, 2 children, and I also study. This is a very high price for me. People are unable to pay such prices for gas, electricity, and heating.
For almost a week, tariff protests are going on in the country. Ukrainians are dissatisfied with the rise of prices for utilities, as well as for gas supplies. From January the 1st, the cost of a cubic meter ranges from 25 to 35 cents. The rise in prices is typical for the heating season, says Oleg Ustenko, advisor to the President of Ukraine. The demand for gas in cold months increases and the price increases accordingly. And they are trying to make the final consumer pay after the general tariff increase. It seems like a correct economic logic, but it is broken apart by the fact that there are quarantine restrictions in the country. These quarantine restrictions definitely do not allow the Ukrainian population to feel absolutely rich and happy, and there are not enough financial resources to pay according to the increased gas tariffs. In order to somehow curb the discontent of Ukrainians, the government suggests to fix the price of $0.25 for the period of quarantine. This will help to support the economy and will not allow suppliers to profit at citizens' expense. The regional gas sellers today buy gas for 25 US cents and sell it for 35 US cents for people. This is an abuse, 40–50% of the price. Here's a quick local solution for the period of quarantine to support the economy and stop these abuses. The price of 25 US cents is now the market price. The restrictions are temporary. This means there are no risks for cooperation with the IMF. After all, the gas market is still operating in Ukraine, but the honesty of some gas players causes some doubts. On the one hand, there are regional gas supply companies, but on the other hand, the Anti-Monopoly Committee is obviously doing something wrong. None of its inspectors ever stressed that there is definitely no monopoly collusion, while many market experts suggest that such collusion may exist. Therefore, Prime Minister of Ukraine has ordered the Anti-Monopoly Committee to find out was there any abuse on the gas market or not. Reported by Vadim Kramer, Andriy Orlov and Tatiana Suli, UATV News.
Quarantine does not mean inflation. Anti-epidemic measures will not affect the currency exchange rate. Moreover, economic experts believe that now there is a number of factors foreshadowing strengthening of Ukrainian currency, hryvnia. Our correspondent will tell you more.
The January quarantine didn't stop the Ukrainian economy. It hit the service sector. But many industrial and agricultural enterprises continue their work, and the situation in foreign markets favors the inflow of foreign currency into the country. This is especially true of commodity trading places, where Ukrainian metal and grain are in demand. Since the situation improves, this means that Ukrainian exporters will feel much better, which means that the proceeds from the sale of products that they sell outside the country, the so-called export proceeds, will continue, and we already see that it is increasing. Export inflows to the country increase in monetary volumes. Almost 45% of last year's exports were agricultural products. In monetary terms, this is more than $22 billion. As for metallurgy, in 2020, Ukrainian steelmakers managed to enter new markets. China bought more than 1 million tons of raw materials in Ukraine last year. In addition, Ukrainian securities are actively traded as well. Since the beginning of the year, the Ministry of Finance has already been able to attract more than $607 million at the auctions for the placement of domestic government bonds. Some of them were denominated in foreign currency. Those investors or creditors who appeared in Ukraine, they entered from outside the country. They had mostly had hard currency, US dollars mostly. Selling dollars, they could buy the hryvnia and accordingly sovereign bonds. The volume of the country's gold and foreign exchange reserve this year reached a 10-year high, more than $29 billion. All this, according to Timothy Milovanov, ensures the stability of national currency. The main thing is that, as you know today, it would not be one exchange rate, tomorrow another, day after tomorrow quite different. This is an increase of 20%, and of course exporters will suffer a lot. They can lose all their profits and go into losses. Or vice versa. The devaluation of hryvnia, for example, by 20% means that goods will grow on imports, which means electricity prices will grow, gas, and so on. This year, they do not expect significant fluctuations in the exchange rate of hryvnia. Nevertheless, Ukrainians do not particularly trust national currency and keep their savings mostly in different currencies. In dollars and hryvnia, the dollar is more stable.
I love hryvnia, I love dollars, I love euro, but I keep everything in the hryvnia as it is the Ukrainian currency. It is a national one.
It is more convenient to save in one currency, and it is a dollar.
Dollars? Why not hryvnia? Dollar is the more stable currency.
The state budget of Ukraine for 2021 foresees the national currency rate to be at the level of 29 hryvnias for $1. The experts expect that the hryvnia exchange rate this year will not exceed 29.5 hryvnias. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Valery Bakus, UATV News.
Up next, the new website Ukraine.UA will help to open Ukraine to foreigners. It was presented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dmytro Kuleba. What is the content there? Is it user-friendly, and is the information useful? Our journalists found out.
www.Ukraine.UA will be the first official window to Ukraine in the online space. Previously, the sites of a kind appeared as private initiatives, but soon after they disappeared. We managed to get the domain under the state control. I emphasize the state, not individuals or companies, would control the internet domain Ukraine.UA. The website is based on the visual brand Ukraine Now. The internet resource contains three main sections. Open. Here one can find information about tourist and gastronomic highlights of Ukraine, as well as history of the country. The next one is the section Invest. It tells which companies one can invest in, why is it worth doing, and what trade opportunities does Ukraine offer. And the Study section presents educational programs for foreigners in Ukrainian universities. The website Ukraine.UA should become a kind of a magnet for an ordinary foreign tourist, for a foreign businessman, and for a foreign student. It is done in order to attract additional attention to Ukraine and popularize our country throughout the world. The photo bank Ukraine is integrated into the site. There is also information about all the key events taking place in the country. Well, there are not many of them now. Moreover, the return of foreign tourists to Ukraine is expected only when the coronavirus pandemic ends and the borders open. In general, the well-known tourist locations are the most popular among foreign guests. Let's say foreign and Ukrainian tourists are interested in the same cities, mostly the same cities. Those are our traditional cultural and entertainment centers, namely Kyiv, Lviv, Odessa. Everything else depends on how many peculiar requests foreign visitors have. The website Ukraine.UA is currently available only in English, but in the future there will be a French, German, Spanish, Arabic and Chinese versions. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Olena Diduch, UATV News.
29 years ago, the Ukrainian parliament has finalized the national anthem of Ukraine, approving the official melody to be used on various occasions. Even though the melody itself was written more than 150 years ago to arrange the poem "Ukraine has not perished yet." A century ago, the musical composition was also used as an anthem by the Ukrainian People's Republic. Our correspondents will tell you more details and interesting facts about one of the national symbols of Ukraine.
In 1863, the Greek Catholic priest Mikhailo Verbitsky accidentally came to find a magazine with an anonymous poem printed in between Taras Shevchenko's verses. Father Mikhailo liked this poem a lot and decided to set the words "Ukraine has not perished yet" to music. Sometime later, he rewrote the melody and presented the choir version.
Особливого, можна так сказати, звучання.
This song became especially important for Ukrainian people a century ago, in the period of independence war of 1917-1921, when the leader of Ukraine, Mikhailo Hrushevsky, announced the text of the Fourth Universal of the Ukrainian Central Council declaring sovereignty and independence of the Ukrainian People's Republic. The crowd listening on the square has immediately started singing the song "Ukraine has not perished yet."
A year after the proclamation of Ukraine's independence in 1992, the song «Ще не вмерла Україна» or Ukraine has not perished yet was declared a national anthem. The parliament has approved its official music on January 15, 1992, while the lyrics were officially approved only 11 years later. The melody itself is a neutral thing. Let's say if a song doesn't have lyrics, then the melody is more likely to be accepted. It was important from the compromise point of view, and it was extremely critical at that time. You couldn't have run it just head-on. Of course, it was kind of an uncomfortable decision to approve the anthem without lyrics, but we, being Democrats, have pushed on this compromise, and we knew that this was a right decision. If the music is done, the lyrics would be coming next. The world has accustomed to an independent country's anthem gradually. When in 1994 Winter Olympics, in a tough figure skating contest, a teenage Ukrainian, Oksana Bayul, had taken over the American frontrunner Nancy Kerrigan, it turned out organizers lost a tape with the Ukrainian anthem. They suggested to replace the Ukrainian anthem with either Russian one or an anthem of no longer existing Soviet Union.
Коли почали шукати цей гімн,
When they started searching for the tape, I have addressed Ludmila Mikhailovska, who at that time served the president of the Skating Federation. I told her to take a police officer, move to an Olympic base and take the backup cassette. And she did it almost at once, having taken the police car.
Because of her, for the first time in Olympic history, the Ukrainian national anthem is being played.
The most populous performance of Ukrainian national anthem is enlisted to the Ukrainian Book of Records. In the middle of the Ukrainian national protest in December of 2013, more than 200,000 people have sung it at once on the Independence Square in Kyiv. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Olena Diduch, UATV News.
That was our final story this hour. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. More updates on our official website, YouTube, and Facebook pages.